Very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start with the topic Neuroscience for Economists. It's already delayed. I think you will bear with me. Let's move on to the first slide. I have set the context for this presentation the following way, that all of us are living in the VUCA world. And when you are going to say this, in the VUCA world, V stands for volatility, U for uncertainty, C for complexity, and A for ambiguity or adversity. And I am very sure you will agree with me that the COVID-19 pandemic, to which we are all a part of it across the globe, and this is a very perfect case of the VUCA world. And we know that it's a total shock to the humanity. I wanted to set a context in the following way to all of you. Now coming to the point, what is the purpose of education? Purpose of education, I have put it in the following way: education for living and education for life. And if you are going to ask me which one is most important, the education for life is very, very important. And are we preparing our youths in accordance with this agenda of education? It's a basic question that we need to ask in the context of the VUCA world. As teachers, we have been redefining our roles, and we are always moving with the times. And obviously, when we are moving with the times, we need to learn, we need to relearn, we need to unlearn, and we have to see that we are going to the best in the field of education. So keeping that in the backdrop, I am moving on to the next important bullet. Teacher, according to me, is basically a trainer, and is a continuous learner. When I'm teaching economics to my students, basically I'm training my students in the art and science of economics. So that's the orientation that we need to wear today when we are setting our context as teachers in the context of the VUCA world, and we are continuous learners. Knowledge, we are knowledge creators and knowledge disseminators. How can we prepare our youths for the VUCA world very successfully? Students look for real life experience. So this we need to keep in our mind. We are living the experience era, so we got to understand very clearly that all our students are looking for good and also live experiences from us. So obviously, when they are looking for the good live experience from us, when I'm teaching marketing or strategy or mathematics or art or science, anything, the students are looking for that. That means basically we don't have any escape route. This is the point that I wanted to bring to your notice, and you're all great teachers, as I understand. Well, coming to the brain-based education or neuroeducation, again, this is the point that we need to look into here. So, interestingly and also unfortunately, this particular part of the study has been ignored. And we know that when we are teaching a particular subject, we are concentrating only on our discipline or the subject, and we say, moment we talk about the neuroeducation, the brain education, we say it is a cup of tea which is meant for the doctors and that of the anatomists. But basically it is not the case, because any learning is taking place in the human brain. So obviously we need to have an understanding of the brain-based education. That has made me to look into this area extensively. But as I already told you, unfortunately it's totally ignored. Interestingly, gaining momentum today. And today, when we are going to see today, across the world, 30,000 neuroscientists have been working on this particular area, and neuro leadership is a new theme, neuroeconomics is a new theme, and neuromarketing is a new theme which is emerging, and neurofinance is also a new theme which is emerging across the globe. So obviously that we need to learn this brain science in a very clear way. So next, I have put it in the quote, you can see here, everything of a human being is brain-driven or brain-triggered. That is how I am just bringing this component of the brain-based education into the domain of economics. So, significance of the study of brain science or the neuroscience. Something about the working of our brain. Let us see how our human brain works in a very, very simple way. Brain is a mystery. Very difficult to understand how the brain is working. I know that the brain is given to me, but I don't know how the brain is operating for me in my day-to-day activities, in my interactions, in my teaching learning process. I am totally blank about it. I don't have any knowledge about this. That's why I basically said brain is given to us. We don't know how the brain operates for me and how the brain works for me. That's why I said it's a mystery. Our entire view of the universe depends on the brain. Francis Crick is a great scholar who has done a lot of work in the consciousness and in the brain science. That is why I just quoted him here, and his quotation is worth mentioning. So 3-pound jelly, and if you are going to see a brain, it's a 3-pound jelly which you can hold in your palm. And it is said that human beings are anatomically, neurologically, genetically, and physiologically apes. We are basically apes. Any ape can reach for a banana, but we can reach for the stars. That is how we become star performers. We create, design, write, play, achieve, which the ape cannot do that. At the most, the ape can live in a forest or in the woods, and it can procreate, and at the end of the day, one fine morning, it will be no more. But the human beings are not like that, which I mentioned here. We create, we design, we listen, we write, we do, we co-create so many other things. Brain, as you know, friends, that it has 100 billion nerve cells. And nerve cells, basically, I mean neurons. And all the neurons are called basically as brain cells. And in our brain, we have 100 billion neurons, which I already said, and the neurons connections, if you are going to see the last bullet of this particular slide, 1,000 to 10,000 connections and contracts are there for all these brain. And if you are going to see, each neuron is like a plant which has roots at both the ends. That means it is communicating each other and talking to each other. And our brain is a purpose-built brain. We should not forget this. And our brain is basically a social brain. It is not political brain or economic brain. It is a social brain. That means the best brain is the one that works with the supporting relationships. From that point of view, I said that the brain is basically a social brain. Neurons fire and wire together. As you know very well, between each neurons, there is a space which is called synapse, and that particular space where lot of chemical reactions are taking place, and actually the neurons are firing. As a result, the wiring is taking place, and we need to make the wiring process great only by reading, engaging, training, and extensive research. All these are the different ways by which we can make our brain to wire itself. Brain region, let us look at it. We have the brain regions in the following way. PFC, it is a prefrontal cortex, basal ganglia, amygdala, hippocampus, anterior cingulated cortex, limbic system, and dopamine. I'll give a small intro of each one. Prefrontal cortex is basically a brain that covers the whole brain of me, and all the other regions of the brain are connected to PFC. It is called a thinking factory. It is called a thought factory. It is called the executive brain. It is called the decision-making brain. It is called the problem-solving brain. For your kind information, it is like a cortex which covers, which is a very strong cortex with a gray color, and this brain has the responsibility in creating the thoughts for us. Any moment of time, if you are having a thought, for example, in a minute, you can have 300 to 400 thoughts from the perception and from the events that we take from the environment. And we generate 300 to 400 thought processes, which are generated in the PFC. And PFC is a growing brain, for your kind information. And this brain has been growing, not a grown brain, it's a growing brain. And it requires a lot of glucose, lot of oxygen, and the carbohydrates of the consumption of the food is converted into the glucose, and glucose will directly go to the PFC, and with the help of this, we are making use of this powerful brain, and it is called a thinking brain. Even to deliver a particular input to you here, I have to make use of the PFC. First one. Second one, basal ganglia. Basal ganglia is beautiful brain which can read the patterns from all things. For example, from the language, from the color, from the design, from the taste, from the smell, it just takes the patterns out of this. And it's a very powerful brain region, and the brain cells are very activated here, and obviously this basal ganglia brain contributes to my pattern reading from the people who are talking to me, interacting to me, and to the teachers, basically to the students with whom we are interacting on daily basis, and our family people, neighbors, and everybody. Please understand, if any one of the cells of the basal ganglia is not working, obviously it is going to be a person, it will be treated as a person with the Parkinson's disease. So basal ganglia is a very powerful region of the brain, again connected to PFC. Third one, amygdala. Amygdala is basically a learning and a learning system brain through the memory system. And the memory system is basically connected to the amygdala. And memory system, we say, because without memory there is no learning. for any student and for all of us. So obviously, amygdala contributes to memory, and it contributes to fresh memory, and with that we have a lot of interest for learning, and that we should not forget at the end of the day. Hippocampus is another region of the brain which is basically taking the cues from our learning in the past. That means it is a learning brain. What I mean here, hippocampus. My dear friends, as we are the teachers who have been teaching to our students with regard to the learning, unless we refer to these regions of the brain, learning will not take place of the kind which we are looking for among the students with whom we are interacting on a daily basis. Next one, anterior cingulated cortex. It is basically a brain region which just is attracted towards the novelty. Anything novel, anything fine, anything fluent, anything good, people immediately catch their attention to it. Why this is so? Because their anterior cingulated cortex is activated with the novelty of the things. If my delivery is good, your anterior cingulated cortex just catch with it, and it makes a linkage with that. Next one, limbic system. Limbic system is a broad system of the brain which includes your amygdala, your learning process, your memory system. It's a old brain and a mid brain, basically emotional. And it also talks about your motivation, your inspiration, everything. Inspiration for learning, inspiration for contributing. So the limbic system is basically an emotional brain, which is one of the oldest regions of the brain. Dopamine is actually a thing which is being released from the mid of the brain when something is being noticed by my sensory organs. I'm talking about my panchendriyas. When the panchendriyas have received the cues from the external environment, then the dopamine is released. Well, moving on to the next important slide, you can see here the brain, which you can Google it from any source, and you are going to see beautifully the different regions of the brain. Next one, we are moving on to the next slide. Next slide here is, you can see a gentleman here. He is Dr. V.S. Ramachandran. I request all my colleagues just to listen to some of these TED Talks, which is being there, and Antarjala, you can listen to him. He is a wonderful professor of neuroscience in the United States of America. He studied at Trinity College and is a proud Indian. He is from Tamil Nadu, and he has written so many books on the human brain and its operations. I request you to listen to him and to his TED Talks. And I'm just quoting Dr. Vilayanur Ramachandran here, and some of the materials which I have used for your presentation is directly from the book which has been authored by him, and the title of the book is Telltale Brain. You can read this. It's a fantastic work on this. Next, you can see the beautiful pic of this great lady. She is Dr. Amy Anston from the Yale Biological School of United States of America. She has worked on one region of the brain which I explained to you earlier, that of the prefrontal cortex, for nearly 23 years. And she says human beings are creating their own thoughts. Thoughts are not outside in. Thoughts we create from within. Where we are creating the thoughts? In our PFC. That is what Ann Amston used to talk about. And I also request you to listen to her. Now let us come to the point. What constitutes intuition? Ladies and gentlemen, as you know very well today, when you talk about problem solving and that of decision-making process, which our science of economics is basically being into, and the intuition plays a very, very dominant role here. What is intuition? According to me, intuition is basically direct knowing. Direct knowing, what I mean here is, you are skipping all other procedures with regard to finding a solution to the problem. When you are into the decision-making process, you are not following any kind of orderly steps here. You are directly coming to the conclusion, and you are directly coming to the solution here. And believe me, we need to train our students in developing their intuition. Intuition is more related to emotions. And please understand, when I say it is more related to the emotions, I am basically talking about which system of the brain or region of the brain? Limbic system, which I explained to you about a couple of minutes back. So intuition can be developed. How it can be developed? If you are more emotional towards a particular thing and engaging towards a particular thing, intuition can be developed. And you know, many of the corporate guys who have been there as the CEOs of the company, they used to say that I have a problem here, I can find a good solution to it when I go for the walk, and in the evening when I come back, he has a solution for it. What is this here? No orderly steps being followed here, no sequential order here, directly getting to the solution to the problem which he could identify in the morning. That basically I'm talking about, that feel of intuition. Economics makes use of this. I will talk to you a little later. What is our subject? When I open just a beautiful screen for you, you can see then and now, because we have been trained in economics right from the day one. Economics is basically resource allocation, my dear friends. Even when I'm teaching to my MBS in my institute, basically the journey starts with resource allocation, be it the man, be it the other resources, renewable, non-renewable, everything, including the money you talk about, it has to be properly allocated, and to see that at the end of the day, we have the result, we have the outcome, and the people who are connected with it are happy about it. And basically these resources are scarce, and which is a reality taken for granted. Even this will continue for many more years. Absolutely no question here. Next one, economization is the basic issue which revolves around the whole science of economics. That means today the concept is less is more. Anything less with you should be considered as more. That is basically the abundance mindset, which the corporate guys have been talking about. Believe me, the corporate guys have been taking cues from economics, from the philosophy of less is more, which I derived it from economization. Next one is optimization. We have been taught by our great teachers when we are pursuing this particular subject in the colleges and the universities, and even for our research also. Optimization is full utilization. Anything that you are going to do, see that you are taking it to the logical end. And anything that you are using with the resources, you should have the full utilization of the same. There should be no wastage at the end of the day, because as we know that resources are highly scarce. Coming to the last part of the story, well-being. What are we interested in at the end of the day? When I go to the bed at the end of the day, I should have a sound sleep. Well-being is very important today. Well-being of an employee, well-being of an executive, well-being of a teacher or a director or the manager, anybody, because at the end of the day, he is only looking for well-being. Well-being is what? Happiness with a meaning. If I have a happiness with a meaning, people are really happy, or I am happy. So our basic task is to see that the people are happy and well-being at the end of the day. What is this? Economics, social science. No change in that. Today, you talk about the behavioral science because your orientation is towards the human beings in particular. Moving on to the next slide. In a nutshell, I will put in the following way, because I'm teaching to the MBAs here. I think you will appreciate with me. In economics is a decision-making science and also problem solving. The rest of the things all are blah blah. And basically, when we study and we teach economics to our youth here, we should keep in the top of our mind that it's a decision-making science and a problem-solving science. You know very well, anybody who comes to me for any kind of a thing is a problem only. That means I need to solve it. I must have an answer to the problem which he is confronted with, be it the student or anybody who is coming to me. And it's same as well in the case of you also. So basically, economics is about this. And the entire modules that we are going to study and we are going to teach to our students should focus on these two important points, which I think this is really a catchy points in the study of economic science. In fact, the VUCA world demands this, no doubt, which I explained to you. In fine, neuroscience is built for the future here for you today. But the question is how? How we can build neuroscience into the domain of economics. I'm coming straight to my topic, which I just tossed to you in the beginning, neuroscience for economists. Neuroscience and economic science. Basically, the self-awareness is very much required for us. Self-awareness is required, and that self-awareness makes me to learn more, to acquire more knowledge, to be in the context, because context is a king today, because context delivers the value. So I say self-awareness is very important for learning, relearning, unlearning process. So I am coming to the topic here. You know, my dear friends, that you're all been teaching to your own students in your own colleges or in universities. I'm also teaching to my MBA students in my institute the theories, the models, the evidence-based. Because anything you are teaching theories to the students, because you know very well, theories have been constructed by the scholars at different points of time. With these theories are the constructs for you to develop an evidence-based study which will directly go to the students at the end of the day for a decision-making process and for solving their own problems in the corporations. So diagnosing the real-life problems, down to earth, it must be all realistic in nature. Coming to the point, well, both growing sciences. Which one you mean both growing sciences? I mean here neuroscience or cognitive science and that of economics. No, when I say and use the word here, growing because challenges to face are more, problems to solve, issues to tackle, hurdles to overcome. I put it in a very, very simple way so that we will not put everything in one basket and we will look at it from one perspective. No, today multiple perspectives are required. That's one of the reasons why I said we have the problems to face, problems to solve, issues to tackle, hurdles to overcome, and we must be the original thinkers. Perhaps that is one of the ways which has made me to get into the field of neuroscience. As teachers, this is our call and goal, making a difference to us and to the lives of our own students, especially in the context of the pandemic world, as you are very, very important. We need to provide a good experience to our students. They are looking for this, and we have to make a difference to their life. I can make a difference to my own students only by making a difference to me. What I mean basically is that with more reading and getting into my domain of the science of economics, into the domain of medicine, into the domain of neuroscience, cognitive science, psychology, basically positive psychology. A warm welcome to experiential problems. Everything today, I need to have an experience of the problem. Pandemic, COVID-19, I need to have an experience of this. So on my own, I have an awareness, I will maintain the social distance. Believe me, in March, around 19th or 20th of March of this year, people don't have any awareness about this. Obviously, lockdown was a need of the hour. And Pradhan Mantri ji got to have this, because by this we have created an awareness of this problem. And today we are self-driven people, and we have that social distancing orientation. We have all these things. Why we follow this? Because it was being taught to us, which is now drilled into our mind. So basically, all problems must be experiential one. When I experience it, I deliver better. And all solutions must also be the outcome of the experiential problems. From this perspective, we have to see our own science of economics, which is growing along with a beautiful science, neuroscience. Today, a conjunction of two disciplines is in force. One is, as you know, neuroscience, another one is economics. And today, the science of economics is merged with, or rather, we have merged with the neuroscience. Believe me, it's a very interesting area, and the subject today is neuroeconomics, which this year I thought of introducing this to my students, because I've been conducting a lot many EDPs and MDPs on this particular area to the corporate guys. So I thought this year, let me introduce behavioral economics for managerial decision making to my MBAs of this 20 and 22 batch. So that I thought that let me share when my good friend Professor Sudhir ji asked me about this. I said this is the wonderful topic, which I think whole day we can get into this with an workshop modules and developing a particular module in this particular area. Well, moving on. Economic phenomenon, any aspect of the human behavior. Basically, when you say economic social science and brain is social, obviously we are interested in human behavior with some examples. Let's move on to this. Economics, like any other social science, is developing theories. That's the ultimate aim. Help us to understand better the whole world. Now, why do we develop the theories? Why do we have the models? Believe me, my dear friend, we need to have the theories and the model, because they are going to bridge the gap between the reality and that of our science. So any economic theory which is considered to be really powerful, really sophisticated, it has to represent and reflect the reality. If it is not going to reflect the reality, the purpose of the theory is gone. So what I mean to tell you today, the people will say that theory is the essence of the practice and practice is the essence of the theory. No doubt about it. I do agree with it, and you will also agree with me. But at the end of the day, when we are teaching the theories to the students, believe me, there is the basic agenda here is on human behavior and changing dimensions of the human behavior, because that is the focus of the study of any social science, and in particular our own science, which is very dear to our heart, economics. Well, ultimate aim is to help us to understand the world we live in. We need to experience the world. We need to understand the world. We need to appreciate the world. How do we understand and appreciate the world? Only through this particular way of doing the thing. And we should make our students to experience this world, a new world. That is why neuroscience is very, very important. Well, behavioral economics. Behavioral economics is nothing but neuroscience into action. Neuroscience into the field of economics. What it does, it increases the explanatory power of economics. My dear friends, Any science or any discipline, when we are teaching to our students, you should develop explanatory power of your discipline, because the discipline is so powerful that it can capture the reality with one go. And if it is in a position to capture the reality, the sensing of the reality by the discipline should be powerful. How do you make this powerful? Only by getting into the domain of neuroeconomics, for the study of the brain science. Well, we have been taught the standard models of rationality. Let me tell you, my dear friends, standard model of rationality has been questioned. And we have been taught by our teachers in the past that human beings are rational. Economics is irrational. No, never, ever, ever, ever. Human beings many a times are behaving in an irrational way. When the human beings are behaving in an irrational way, how do you account for that behavior? How do you analyze that behavior? How do you understand that behavior? I may go to the market to buy 1 kilo of tomato, but in the mad rush in the market because of lockdown and other things, I may decide not to buy the tomato even. What is this? Are you going to say it is rational? Absolutely irrational. I may go to the market to buy 1 kg of potatoes, but in the moment I received a phone call from my good friend Mr. Vishwanath. So in the moment I thought that why should I buy 1 kilo of potatoes? I will buy only half a kilo. And I also have seen the basket full of potatoes, and that potatoes were not so good to my Panchendriya, so I have decided to buy only half a kilo. My wife told me to buy 1 kilo, but I have purchased only half a kilo. What kind of behavior I am revealing in the market actually when I am making a purchase? How do you explain these kinds of things to our students? That means it's basically irrational mode. So standard models of rationality today is questioned. Human beings are not reason-based. Many a time they behave in different ways, in different situations, at different times, with different people, across different situations. You know, the present day lockdown situations and pandemic world, you can just recall about the behaviors of the people, how do they respond to different things. Basically, sometimes rational, sometimes irrational, sometimes irrational, sometimes perceived to be. I think it's a very, very different area. So rational thinking, when I said earlier, my dear friends, as you know very well, when we talk about thinking, basically we're referring to the PFC, prefrontal cortex. Why? You know very well that creates the thought. I am the creator of my own thoughts. Thoughts are not coming from outside. I am creating my own thoughts from the perception of the events and so many things which comes to me. So basically decision making comes through this PFC. How people behave, I'm just posing a few questions to you. How people behave, how they should behave, how they are expected to behave, how people are actually behaving. Are they not different? Look at all these wordings here. How people behave, one aspect. How they should behave, another one. How they are expected to behave, another one. How people are actually behaving, totally confusing, right? That could be one of the reasons why I said about a couple of minutes to everybody here that the thinking is very important here and the behavior is not as we expected as that of rational. Well, moving on. Context is the thing. Long-term value to the relevant stakeholders is the basic. My dear friends, whether I am teaching economics or management or mathematics or statistics or marketing to my students, please understand one important thing. All our students are real stakeholders and we are looking for real value from us. To me, the stakeholders are the relevant stakeholders. You're all participating in my webinar here and you're all the relevant stakeholders because I stay focused to you and I have to create a value for you. In turn, you will be creating that value to your own stakeholders at the end of the day. So value creation is a very, very important process in any discipline for that matter. That is why there is a need on the part of this science to merge with neuroscience. Term irrationality, economics, behavioral economics, which I all explained it. Rationality of the human behavior, judged not on the level of the individual, but on the level of the systematic outcomes. Look at this now. When you look at the rationality, it is not the rationality that I thought about it, that I'm going to behave irrationally, because as you know, that at the end of the day, it is the behavior which is being connected to my thinking. First is the thinking, then is the emotions. And accordingly, you will have the matching behaviors. So thinking takes place in the PFC, and when you talk about the emotions, and the main brain is the midbrain, or basically, as I said, limbic system. So thinking first, which is followed by the emotions. So after that, the behavior in the market or at home or in the class or in the cabin or with anybody for that matter. So please understand here, your behavior rationality is judged not the level of the individual, level about the systematic outcomes that I bring. What I have a takeaway at the end of the day. Half a kilo potatoes, half a kilo tomato is actually the outcome. Though I thought in the beginning that I'm going to the market to buy 1 kilo of tomato and 1 kilo of potatoes. Believe me, the systematic outcome at the end of the day is only half a kilo of both rather than 1 kilo of both. So Kahneman and Tversky's contributions, I request all of you to Google these contributions. They have done a tremendous work in the field of emotions, in the field of thinking fast and slow, in the field of heuristics. Heuristics basically is their contribution. Many times, many of our behaviors are the rules of thumb and very difficult to predict it so easily. Lot many biases incorporated, deception is incorporated. I may be deceived by myself even, not by others. How do you account for this kind of a behavior? How are we going to teach to our students and to solve their own problems in the corporate world in the near future or in the distant future? Is a basic question. So I request all of you to get into Kahneman and Tversky's contributions. Individuals frequently act irrationally. Look at their statement, systematic errors and biases are quite natural. Individuals frequently act irrationally. I think they won the Nobel Prize also for this particular field, and immense material has been drawn for behavioral economics and neuroeconomics from the works of Kahneman and that of Tversky. Without their contributions, the contributions to the science of behavioral economics and to the science of cognitive economics and neuroeconomics is, according to me, is incomplete. That is one of the reasons why I just quoted these two scholars in my presentation here. What this is irrational. Irrational is basically about the functioning of the brain. Minute, second changes with regard to our brain function and accordingly our behavior, purchase, outcome, everything. Psychologists talk about the different approaches here of the rationality. What psychologists basically talk about? Now, a rational being pursue enlightened self-interest with perfect knowledge. When psychologists have been talking about the this kind of a model, they say, I have put it in the quote here, positive psychology, they say, a rational human being pursue enlightened self-interest with perfect knowledge. Look at the wordings here, perfect knowledge. But the question here is, are we being at the disposal of the perfect knowledge? No, definitely never ever. We are not at the disposal of perfect knowledge about a problem that I am facing with, and our brain is not in a position to perceive it so easily. It requires time. So when I am not at the disposal of the perfect knowledge to solve a particular problem, I'm just deferring that particular thing. Till I get the information, I am not in a position to solve the problem. Please understand, lockdown during, if you talk about the situation, March 24th was the date, which is very crucial here, lockdown started. Before that, please understand here, we were not in a position to know exactly what was the perfect knowledge which was required for coming out of this pandemic. We were totally upset about this, and you require time to think, time to have a perfect knowledge for this. That means trying to create an awareness among the people about their social responsibilities, about the social distancing, about their health and all, because it's an issue of the public health. Unless we are into this, we are not in a position to solve it. That could be one of the reasons why that the decision of the lockdown at that point of time was taken. I'm talking in terms of the behavioral economics and talking in the light of the thinking, behavior, everything of the model. I think you can make a lot of research in this. Now, we have heard about the bounded rationality model of Herbert Simon. It is mentioned here as Herbert, it is not Herbert Simon. About 4 decades back, he talked about irrational maximizing behavior, and he talked about what is called bounded rationality. The rationality of the human beings is not open. It is bounded by situation, the time, everything, because we are not with the perfect knowledge. We are not with the perfect information. We are not with the perfect timings. So absolutely our rationality is bounded. Bounded rationality does not mean to say that we are irrational. No, not at all. But rationality is not rationality in the strict sense of the term, as all our economists have been talking about in the past. That is why I said this model is questioned today. Bounded rationality has two important components. One is suffice, another one is satisfy. So these two components have to be satisfied. That is why the people today talk about satisfying model, satisfying behavior, satisfying of the interests of the stakeholders. Why? Two components are there, satisfy and suffice. Because you're not talking about with the perfect knowledge, which is not possible on the part of us. So human beings make judgments all the time. We know opinions, assess. Now we are assessing each possible outcome in our own style, in our own way, no doubt about this. When we are assessing our own outcomes in the way, now the question of the theory of the rational choice will come. Now I'm just getting into the domain of Dr. Richard H. Taylor, who won the Nobel Prize for Behavioral Science way back in 2017, and you know very well, is a great economic scientist from the Chicago University of the United States of America. And today this particular idea is gaining a lot of significance. I'm now coming to the exact domain of my study of neuroscience for economists, taking some cues from the works of Dr. Richard H. Taylor, who indeed has taken an insight from the very many models which has been developed and proved by Kahneman and Tversky. Well, coming to the point, the judgments are there. You know, as I said in the beginning, in the previous slides, as you might have seen, that decision making and problem solving is very, very crucial, which is the domain of the study of economics. When I teach economics, my students, basically, as I pointed out, my orientation is towards either the decision making and the problem solving. Nothing else. Nothing else. Naturally, to make that, you need to have a judgment, you need to have an understanding, you need to have a behavior analysis, you need to have a thinking, you need to have an intuition, you need to have what is called insight. All these are related to brain science only. Unless I refer to the brain science, I cannot be a master in all these areas. That is why I said here judgments. Again, Kahneman and Tversky, their own perspectives on bounded rationality. They say technology, there are so many tasks complexity which the human being is into. When I am performing a particular task in my own institute or at home, please understand there is a complexity in my task, because when we talk about, especially when we are teaching to the HR students, we say role specificity and task specificity. Task has been assigned to me to perform that particular role, but am I putting my heart and soul into it? Many a times may not be. That means I am giving a sort of a bias or complexity with regard to my task and that of my role. So these people have been talking about this limited processing capability. People are not endowed with unlimited processing capabilities. People are endowed with limited processing capabilities. Be it the study of the market, pricing strategies, demand forecasting, anything that we have been teaching to our own students, demand, supply, price, or anything. Please understand the processing capabilities of the human beings in general and our students in particular, let me tell you and put it on record here, is limited, because we are not at the disposal of the perfect information which is required for that. We are searching for that. We are on and on and on. Until we are on and on and on, I am not at the disposal of the perfect knowledge to solve a particular problem at my hand. So this is the problem that I'm basically talking about, quoting views from these two writers. Judgmental errors are there, my dear friends. Why judgmental errors are there? Because the limited processing capability of mind, bias is there, deviation is there, self-deception is there, and behavior conflict is there, thinking clarity is not there. Obviously, it is eventually contributing to judgmental errors in my decision making and problem solving. That is why today people talk about intuitive judgment models. Now, what is intuitive judgment models, which I made a reference to you earlier? Direct knowing, direct understanding, not with any pre-designed steps for the answers or the solution to the problems. Psychologists understood errors to which human beings are prone to. For your kind information, 200 errors we are prone to for making a particular decision. Believe me, 200 errors Now, are we accommodating these errors? No, we have taken these errors for granted. And which science can analyze this very good? Positive psychology. Another one, cognitive neuroscience or neuroeconomics can also talk about this in a fantastic way. Why? It had already a marriage with or a wedlock with neuroscience. Biases are there, heuristic simplification is there, self-discipline, which I said, emotion, self-control, self-interaction, all these are the points which Kahneman and Tversky has been talking about. Next one, it is over. Moving on to the next one. Love promotes credible commitment. This is the statement of a psychologist. Please understand, when we love certain things, when we love our own work, it promotes a credible commitment from a person. When a student learns his own subject, when we make him to learn in a very lovable fashion, lovable manner, obviously at the end of the day, what I'm going to stress here is that he has a credible commitment. This is a statement from a positive psychologist, which I have quoted here. Human beings, variety of emotions are there, my dear friends. Mood is different, emotion is different, affection is different. Okay, all these have to be studied separately. I'm not going to give a big lecture on this because time is a constraint for me. So for your kind information, I'm just making you to get into this so that your teaching of economics is going to be more realistic, more live, more experiential, and thereby we can make a difference to the lives of our youngsters, especially when we are being turned out in this particular pandemic world. So role of value delivery is very important, especially emotions play a very dominant role. How do you accommodate this in a very, very strict science of economics? Very difficult in the beginning, is possible today because thanks to the neuroscience and our subject has been growing and getting lot of nourishment from the science of neuroscience. So that's why it is getting lot of proteins, lot of power. Now, look at this particular question here. Why do sellers often value their goods or assets much higher than buyers? Look at this. Sellers always value their goods higher than the buyers. That is why they say this is my price, this is my best price. Now, I'm going to bargain with the seller, but the seller will say, no, this is my price. I have quoted, my product is good, this is good, my brand is good, this is good, that is good. Why he has to value this? I will also value my price is the best price to be quoted to the purchase of that particular product from the seller. How do you have a balance between the two? And please understand, the pure science of economics cannot answer this question. You require behavioral science to answer this particular question. Why do sellers often value their prices, their goods or assets much higher than buyers? Now, when we are teaching monopoly models, perfect competition models, oligopoly models and other models, please understand, if there is a question from a student about this, we are not in a position to answer this question. And believe me, the usual models cannot explain this particular power. You require a special explanatory power of economics, which you can imbibe only from the science of, as I said, neuroscience. Using standard model, we cannot answer the above question. Absolutely ruled out. Standard models cannot answer these questions at all. They're all inaccurate predictions are there in the standard models. What we are looking for in the present day world is, as far as possible, concrete predictions. And corporate world is looking for concrete predictions. Producers are looking for concrete predictions. Teachers are looking for concrete predictions about this environment. Students, of course, now they are at home looking for concrete predictions. Are we in a position to deliver this? And which science will help you here? No doubt it is neuroscience. Now, basically what I mean here is, now moving on to the next one, every model, my dear friend, has two important components. One is the domain of application and domain of validity. When I'm teaching a Malthusian model or Ricardian model or Kahneman's model or Tversky model or that of Harrod-Dommer model, please understand every model has two important components. One is the domain of application and the domain of validity. If I'm not into this, the very model will become defective. So when I'm talking about the neuroscience models, obviously I can see here that the neuroscience models have the domain of application also, domain of validity also. And believe me, most of the economic models may not reflect this for lack of so many things. lack of bias, for bias, for error, for defection, all those things. And still, many a times, including me, I'm teaching this to my students. But gone are the days. All those standard models are totally rejected today. And we got to move with the times, and we should become a part and parcel of this new normal world. New normal world is because of this small virus, I mean coronavirus, which is a new normal world, which it has already brought forth here, and we should be a part of this world. And all 18th, 19th centuries, if you are going to see here, except Adam Smith, my dear friend, if you are reading this theory of moral sentiments, believe me, we are more prone to the reading of the Wealth of Nations. No, basically the theory of moral sentiments, which he published, as I understand, in 1759, talks about fantastic insights about neuroscience. He talks about emotions. He talks about so many behaviors of the human beings. Please understand this. And even the greatest of the great neuroscientists have been quoting Adam Smith, not for Wealth of Nations, but for theory of moral sentiments. And I think that's an exciting thing for all of us. Please understand, today the marketing has an edifice in economics. And recently I was just reading one of the beautiful articles in Marketing News, wherein guru of marketing, as you know very well, Dr. Philip Kotler used to say, you cannot forget economists like David Ricardo and Adam Smith. They provide an edifice for marketing. And if you are not in a position to understand their theories and their models, you cannot teach marketing to the students. This has been told, please understand, not by me, Sudhir Raj, it has been told by the guru of marketing, Dr. as I told you, Kotler. This is fantastic. If you are going to read the Marketing News of the 2018, there was a mention of this, and repeatedly has been talking about this. It's very interesting and something like heart-touching to all the economists who have been teaching this subject to our own students in various colleges and universities. I'll be taking a couple of minutes with you. And well, this is, interestingly, Adam Smith, I already told you, I request you, my dear friends, refresh yourself. It's a small, beautiful book which has been penned by Adam Smith, Adam and Smith of Economics, which all of us are very aware, and we have been telling that is the father of economics. Believe me, 1759 work of theory of moral sentiment. I'm just quoting here, which has been spoken by the behavioral scientist about the book which was penned by Adam Smith in 1759. I quote, vital psychological insights are there in the book. It makes a very fine reading, without any jargons, without any mathematical explanations, a small or that of a Jota book, which will give you a lot of insight into behavioral domain of a human being. Fantastic it is. So he says that the behavioral scientists will say vital psychological insights are there. 4 shadows of the behavioral economics you can see in the works of Adam Smith's theory of moral sentiments. Believe me, it's something like I feel honored and elevated at this point of time, because the 4 shadows of the behavioral economics today, for which a Nobel Prize was awarded to Dr. Richard Taylor, you could trace this in the works of Adam Smith, not Wealth of Nations, but theory of moral sentiments. The role of emotions in decision making was very well stressed by Adam Smith. Hope you will appreciate this. That's why I said in the beginning, it's going to be an enjoying session for all of us. But it's only tip of the iceberg which I could present here. Now I'm moving a couple of minutes with you on Dr. Richard Taylor. I think you might have heard about this great man. I request all of you to listen to his TED Talks and what kind of ideas that he wanted to put it across to the world of economic science. Well, believe me, there is a resurgence of behaviorism in economics today. So if I'm going to cling my thinking to the old thoughts, I think I'm no longer relevant when the equation of change is happening today. The rules of the game has been changing. So I need to de-affiliate myself from the old modular base of teaching the economics to the students. I have to move with the time. When I move with the time with the behaviorism of with the Taylor, with Kahneman, with Tversky and others, obviously my science of economics started, which will become a lot of, you can see the pearls of wisdom in it. And that distilled wisdom should go to our students. Thereby, their life is going to be an experiencing and enjoying life in the corporate world. Believe me, the mental accounting is a new area, which economists we can teach, which Taylor says it's not something like an astronomical science. It's not a rocket science, which everybody can teach, which I have introduced this time to my MBA first sem students. Mental accounting is there, behaviorism is there, nudging. Nudging is an interesting area. In 2008, Taylor, with another law professor, wrote this particular book. I request you to read this book. Nudging is something like what he says, basically a possible nudge we apply in our day-to-day lives to manifest a particular behavior. This possible nudging is very important. That means basically we have to be given with freedom of choices. When we have not many choices, I mean the freedom of choices, which is the basic philosophy of the nudging, obviously my decisions are going to be better decisions. I won't say the rational decisions are better decisions. And this nudging got to be applied wherever it is possible. And it is something like economics moving forward in the corporate world, or economics which is seen in the corporate world today is through the philosophy of nudging. Nudging is basically a thing which even Dr. Taylor speaks about, the endowment effects. Endowment effects, he says that people value a thing when people own it. Believe me, it's very interesting. When people own it, they value it more and they have a fairness appeal. When I own my topic, when I own my children, when I own my students, when I own my institute and a college, and believe me, when I own it, there is a lot of endowment effect in this. And I value that or a thing of the institute or the college or my children or my family or my students or my colleagues or my stakeholders very most dear to the heart. And this is important. And that kind of the philosophy is basically a philosophy of behaviorism in economics, which can be learned only through neuroscience, not through any other branch of science, or including, as I said earlier, and I've been telling this, positive psychology. And he talks about the planner and the doer. He talks about the behavioral forms. He talks about behavioral finance, everything in terms of the behavior. And today when you talk about the leadership, teachers as leaders in the class, we say that teacher is a leader because there is a leadership, and leadership is bounded with the behavior. So leadership is behavior today, and behavior is molded by our emotions, and emotion is being controlled, regulated, directed and managed by thought process. That means you are starting with the PFC region of the brain, which is a brain science only. You cannot take any other stand other than this. What is this? A libertarian and paternalism, which Taylor has been talking about. It's nothing but freedom of the choice. Give more freedom of choice to the people. Let them come out with new ideas, new innovations, new thinkings, new designs, and at the end of the day, have some interventions here and there. Let them come out of with this. At the end of the day, that ideas become novel and they will contribute to the world of business and to the countries in general. So at the policy level, my dear friends, the behavioral economy has a lot of implications. I will just quote one of the very interesting policy domains of this. Very interesting one. What is this policy domain here? You know that when our Pradhan Mantri ji introduced what is called Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan as that of commissioning so many toilets in India. Why it failed initially? You know, it failed initially for the reason that people were not being created an awareness and the behavior for sanitation. Unless you create a behavior of change in them for sanitation, the construction of the toilets under the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan will not take off. I'm just talking about behavioral economics as a policy model. That means creating an awareness, creating a level of consciousness, reframing the whole question what Taylor speaks about. Not looking at the same question. You are looking at the things from the different. For example, there are no buses which are flying here, so I have decided to confine to my home. This is one way of looking at the problem. Another way, I was just sharing with my good friend Mr. Vishwanath yesterday. Now please understand, you make the buses to fly on the roads. When you make the buses to ply on the roads, people who are sitting at home will also make a decision to catch the bus and to go. This is another way of reframing it is. Now, are we getting into this kind of changes? That means basically it is mental mapping, changing in our mental models, changing in our thinking styles. And this we need to teach to our young generation, I mean to our young students, and to equip with the future. Just for a few minutes, I'm going to complete this whole process. Today, corporates are being taught with the scenario planning. I'm teaching to my students demand forecasting and scenario planning. I think all of you might have enjoyed the movie Drishyam. The original was Jitu Joseph movie, wherein Mohanlal was the main hero of the movie, main cast, and it was a wonderful success of this movie, as you know. Later on, they had the Hindi version of it, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, everything. But please, I'm requesting you, when you just watch that particular movie, it's a movie based on the beautiful philosophy of scenario planning, thinking the unthinkable. This is important today to face the challenges of the poor, challenges of the future, challenges of the corporate world. No one thought that COVID-19 is going to be a reality. Believe me, it has made the world to shake. Don't you think we require our students, we require ourselves to have an understanding of scenario planning and behavioral economics to train our students to face such kind of pandemics or endemics in the future? Obviously. So Drishyam movie I was just quoting. I don't want to show all slides here because time is almost a constraint. It's getting up. Well, Taylor formalized economic behavior. He started formalizing economic behavior, reframing the economic questions, which I already explained to you earlier, improving the government policies. Why do you reframe the economic questions? To improve the government policy. For example, which I already said, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. My dear friends, this is all that I wanted to present to you. So whatever the subject that we are teaching, subjects I mean your economic subject that we are teaching to our students in our own colleges, in our own universities or institutes for that matter, at the end of the day, economic science is growing, economic science is powerful, and economic science is taking many cues and inputs from positive psychology and from neuroscience. I think when we recast ourselves to look at the world of economics from this spectacle, from this lens, please understand our life as teachers and our domain as teachers in the colleges and universities is going to be worth rewarding, worth mentioning. Wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Shall we take some questions, sir? Hi, sir. Hello? Sudarshan, sir. Sudarshan, sir? Hello?
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful... Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello,
Thank you,
hello,
sir, for your wonderful...
So much. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Hello,
you.
sir. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can very well hear you, madam. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful, enlightening and thought-provoking lecture.
Okay.
I hope it has effectively oriented the participants. It's now time for interaction with the resource person.
Oh,
Before
absolutely.
we start this session, I would like to inform the participants that the feedback link is already given in the chat box, and e-certificate will be issued within a week only to those participants who have submitted the feedback form. Now, we begin the interaction session with the resource
How long we
person.
can go, madam?
Sir, there are few questions for you, and the
Fine.
first question is, the name, same person has asked many questions. I can't tell you the name. I'll read out the question. Sir,
Hello.
does neuroeconomics make a revolution in game theory, econometrics, and big data analytics in the days to come?
Okay. What's the question, madam?
The question is, does neuroeconomics make revolution in game theory, econometrics, and big data analytics in the days to come?
Could you please repeat the question, madam? I can't hear you.
Okay. Does neuroeconomics make revolution in game theory, econometrics, and big data analytics in the days to come.
Absolutely, madam. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Can you
You
hear
can
me?
answer.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Yeah.
You can answer.
Absolutely. Today it has already taken into account today, and today when we are teaching economics to, especially to the MBAs, when I'm teaching here, big data has made an entry into it. And no doubt the econometric exercises which we have been using to teach our own subject and to make it very much policy relevant and very much decision making orientation, it's gaining a lot of significance today, sir. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I fully agree with your statement which you said here, that big data and analytics is making a lot of strides in the study of economics, no doubt about it. In fact, we are going to introduce this particular paper to our elective students of MBA here, that is Econometrics for Managers. Econometrics for Managers, for the simple reason that we have understood that this is a very important domain to be taught to the students.
So the second question is,
Yeah.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
madam. I can hear you.
Okay. The second question is, sir, how do you quantify behavioral patterns in brain? It is a difficult task as it needs scanning.
Yes, very beautiful. It's a fantastic question. Today, for your kind of Coca-Cola as a company, when you are just making an analysis of this, they are using brain scanning models to find out the behavioral changes among the customers for their product. There are so many ways by which you can go into this. You know, the basal ganglia region of the brain, which I was referring in the beginning, as you have heard my presentation, it is all about pattern reading, madam. And you will even take a cue from the particular color which you saw when you were going to the school at that point of time. And today, if you are going to see the same color, and all your imagination will go back to that particular school and during that time when you saw that particular color. Brain is so powerful in that. And we can take the cues from the language, from the smell, from the color, from everything, and we build the patterns about it. And there is a lot of research which is going on today. And if you get into, I'm just giving a small example of the Coca-Cola here. They have used so many modular kind of strategies to know exactly how the customers are reacting to their product vis-a-vis with their competitors as that of, say, Pepsi. And they use the brain modules into that. And the field which today, which is gaining momentum, is neuromarketing. Neuromarketing is basically about the use of the neuroscience into the domain of the marketing and marketing management. So people can get into that. There's a lot of research which has been done in this area. And the region which contributes a lot for the study of this is basal ganglia of the region of the brain. And if you want any kind of a stop with regard to this, I can pass it on to you. Kindly share your email. At the end of the day, I can pass all the important things pertaining to this to you, and the actual research which is evidence-based.
Okay, sir. The next
Yeah.
question is, the study of human brain is a journey for an unknown region, and uncovering behavioral pattern is very difficult. We can go to moon, but not to our brain. Can neuroeconomics be a rocket to explore this region of black box?
Very good question. My dear friend, even today I've been telling that brain is a mystery. And for this, I request you to read The Telltale Brain, authored by Dr. Villiyanur Ramachandran, the world-famous neuroscientist. For your kind information, 2 years back, he was supposed to be awarded with the Nobel Prize for this theme, but unfortunately, he could not bag it. I'm sure that he's going to bag the Nobel Prize for neuroscience. Please listen to his talk. And my humble submission here is that brain is a mystery, but we need to explore that mystery. That's how my slide started. If you could see the first bullet of my presentation, brain is a mystery. When brain is a mystery, our task is to explore the mystery, which is already mystery. And mystery we cannot keep quiet. We have to make it not like a neuroscience, because This is one of the reasons why the people have been talking, especially the medical scientists, the neuroscientists who have been working in the different universities, have been talking about this. The mystery has been, now just it has been unlocked today. That is one of the reasons why, as a student of economics, I am learning that. Please understand this. I am learning this because for a very simple reason that it is unlocked today. And most of the works on this particular area is simple. And when I explained PFC, its operations are very simple. You can see that in the YouTube how the PFC operates, how the thoughts are generated. That means it can be learned. That is why I said, if you are quest for learning, everything is possible. It is not at all a rocket science. It is a simple science which everyone can learn and master it.
Yes, sir. The last question is,
Yeah.
could you please explain invisible hands?
No, invisible hand is pertaining to the philosophy of Adam Smith. And he is talking about, as you know very well, invisible hand is nothing but the demand supply factors which are working on their own in the market system. They are called market mechanism, and thereby it creates demand for the goods with matching with the supply of the goods. You know, all classical economists were the believers of supply creating its own demand. Please understand here, and please note here very carefully that during that period of time it worked wonders. And today, when you are looking at the present situation of lockdown and other things, demand creating its own supply, and you have to say with a few statements to be added to that. Demand may create its own supply, or supply may create its own demand with some fewer qualifications to the statements, which got to be explained only through behavioral patterns in which the government has to take a call. If the government has to make a call on the entire production process of the economy and the demand for those production processes in the economy. What I mean here basically is that invisible hands which we have been taught by our own teachers when we studied at that point of time, at the market mechanisms we talk about. Please understand, today we talk about the activized demand and activized supply, which you can talk even in terms of the brain science also, behavioral science also, which can be explained. It is more of a workshop kind of a session it is, because 1 hour 15 minutes is not sufficient for me to complete the entire process of this. I developed the modules for this. 1 day full workshop to the economics teachers on this area. At the end of the day, you will be really enlightened and educated about this. And if all those questions which I answered in a reasonably good way, I'm going to send the things. If you are going to send me the emails to me, I'll send the real apt version of this for your kind reference and kind understanding. Any question, madam? Any more questions?
No, sir. No more questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving satisfactory. Thank you very much for giving satisfactory reply for all the participants who have asked the questions. With this, we end up the interaction session. Now, I request Dr. Sudarshan Kumar, Head of the Department of Economics and Cooperation, and also the convener of this national level webinar, to propose the vote of please.
Good afternoon. Thankfulness is the beginning of gratitude. Gratitude is the completion of thankfulness. I take this opportunity to remember the persons behind the success of this webinar. I thank Sri K. Hemaraj, correspondent of DJV Sangha, Udupi, for inaugurating this seminar. The organizing committee is indebted to the resource person Dr. Sudhir K., Professor Justice K.S.Hegde Institute of Management, Nitte, for his brilliant and amazing presentation. Thank you, sir. On behalf of the Economics Department, I appreciate the services rendered by Technical Coordinator Srimati Akshata Marathe and Technical Assistant Sri Varun Kumar. I recognize the support of Principal of the College Dr. Ravish Kumar, IKC Coordinator Srimati Padmaja Shetty, Organizing Committee members Sri Mahavirajiri and Sri Parshunatha Ajri. Thanks are also due to Dr. Rupa for conducting the webinar in a beautiful manner. Last but not least, our college is grateful to all the participants who made the webinar a successful one. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thank you.